this is what I got. And then my friends remind me, but that's not what you wanted. But I have to convince myself, no, that's what I wanted. In psychology, there's a theory about, it's called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive is the way that we think, and dissonance is something different. Cognitive dissonance is a very interesting theory because it talks about a psychological study that they did on college students. They gave them a very boring task, and they said, we have 100 pegs, wooden pegs, and we want you to put them in these little holes. It's going to take you a long time. And when you're done, we're going to thank you. For half of the group, for this very boring task, they got nothing but a thank you. For the other half, they got $1. $1 to put in 100 little pegs. And then they asked them on the way out, did you enjoy that activity? Which group do you think said, yes, I enjoyed the activity? The ones that received $1 or the ones that received a thank you? Why? Why is that? Yes, exactly. So you're exactly right. What ended up happening was the people that received a thank you said, they had to think to themselves, why would I do something so boring for someone else for no money? Because it must have been fun. They had to make an excuse for themselves. For the people that received $1, it was justification. You better pay me money. Next time I come back, you better pay me more. That was a very important time, and that was a very boring task. So giving them that money meant that they didn't need to come up with an explanation. But the people that received the thank you, they had to work very hard to justify why they spent an hour of their time doing something very boring. And that's the same idea with this commitment. Once you decide you're going to do something, you will justify what it is that made you decide on what you did. Does that make sense? It's a very interesting concept. You can try that with your kids when you really don't want them to do something. You can tell them something else. Okay.
Yeah,
question. That's exactly how they felt. The college kids would say, $1 for my time, it's almost better if you just say thank you. Right. It's absolutely true. I do that with my employees sometimes. I make them do something, and I know if I take them out to lunch because of that, now they're not only going to expect lunch every single time, I don't mind, but they're going to think to themselves, that's the only reason I did it. So sometimes what I do is I will take them out to lunch anyway, but not attached to a task. So I have them do a task and I say, thank you. That was so nice of you. You stayed late to help this little girl stay out of the hospital or something. And in their minds they think, yes, because I'm a good person and I care about my job. The minute I take them out and say, here, you get a $20 gift certificate to Target because you did this, they think to themselves, that's why I did it. So I try and separate the two. Yes, you have a question?
Do other people have to always come up with excuses just for other food? Why do you have to give some excuse to say, well, I could just have other food?
Right.
I'm doing it for the money.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the reason why people always come up with some excuse.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you attach a reward to it, then they're going to strive for the reward. But if you don't give the reward, they create their own reasons. It makes me feel good to do that. So a lot of parenting books actually, they discourage you from rewarding a child for saying, oh, you got straight A's because you're smart. You're so smart, I'm so proud of you for being smart. They actually discourage parents from saying that because then the child thinks, well, then I don't have to try. I'm just very smart. Instead, what the parenting manuals say is encourage them for trying. Encourage them for the effort that went into it. So you're not really focused on the outcome or their inherent talents, because that's what happens when we have a child that's very smart. Well, they might know it, but if everyone points it out, then they start relaxing and thinking, well, I don't really have to try that hard. But if instead you applaud their behavior, I know that you got a B+, an A-, but I'm so proud because I saw you studying very hard. the next time they're going to try and study hard instead of focusing on their inherent talents. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is very interesting. It's this idea about conformity. Conformity, a lot of social psychologists look at this and they think to themselves, why is it that some people will do things only because other people are doing it too? It's a little bit like the bandwagon, but it's something that people have to work very hard to justify with themselves. I'll give you an example. There was something called the Ashline Studies. And what happened was there's a diagram on a board. It's like a poster size. And there's different lines on it. Some of them are shorter than others, and then some of them are very long. But the long is so much longer than the other lines that end halfway. And then they would ask somebody, they would line 3 people up, and they would ask the first person, which one is the longest line? And you would probably think that it's the one that's the longest, second, that's twice as long as everything else. That first person would say that one, second person would say that one, and the third person would also say that one. If you take that same person and put in 2, we call them decoys. They're not really research participants. They're there to see what would happen if they did something else. So instead, these people chose the second longest line. The second longest line is only halfway from the longest line. It is very obvious to anyone who doesn't need glasses. So the first participant says, that one is line B. And the second one says, that one is line B. What do you think the third one said? They might have taken a while, they might have scratched their heads, but what came out of them was the same exact response, even though it is blatantly obvious to everyone. There's a much longer line. The Ashline Studies were replicated over and over and over again. Different ages, different populations, different parts of the country. And they saw that it was so important to people to not be different from everyone else. They had to not know that these people were decoys. If they knew that they were experiment, then they would have answered C. But they thought they were responding to some sort of a line image technique. They thought they were doing a study on brain waves and behaviors. So they didn't think to themselves, this is a social study. Another very interesting study that caused traffic to stop was something called the Sky Study. And what happened was, again, social psychologists like to plant decoys out in the community. And so there were people looking up at the sky. It was a blue sky. There was nothing there at all. There was nothing in the sky but clouds. And they were staring. And then pretty soon, 2 more people came, and they were staring at the same spot in the sky. You would think, if you were just looking at the people, there's a UFO up there. And oddly enough, so many people came, and it really just started with 2 people. All you need is 2 or more. And suddenly, it stopped traffic. They had to discontinue the study because it was causing a traffic jam. So if you ever need to stop traffic, that might be something you want to try and do. You have to be patient, and you have to have 2 or more. They did not get a ticket. That's true. Well, because they didn't stand in the middle of the street. They're just on the sidewalk, but so many people, even the cars were, why is everybody staring up? So the cars started stopping. Another study was, this is supposed to be an elevator. This is another social psychology study that I find to be very fascinating. When you go into an elevator, which way do you face? Why do you face the door? In case of an emergency, and what was that? Easier to get, like, so when the door's open, you want to just walk out. Any other reasons? That's what everyone else does, exactly. If you were to go into an elevator, most people, as soon as they walk in, turn right back around and they face the doors. What social psychologists did was they planted decoys, and they had people that walked in continue to face the back of the elevator. So that the person who walked in tried to do their usual thing, and then they realized everyone in the elevator is not facing the door. Everyone is facing behind me. Sure enough, eventually, they would also face the back of the elevator, so that when the elevator doors opened, they'd have to check, oh, this is me, and then they turn around. So it's very interesting. People have a need to do things that other people are doing, even if they know that line really doesn't seem like the longest to me, but I'm going to say it because I don't want to look stupid, I don't want to be different. So if you want to get people to do something, you can give them the impression everyone's doing it. Everyone will be there. Even if it's not necessarily true, that is one way that you can persuade people, is to give them the perception. It doesn't have to be absolutely true. They can have a feeling that everyone else signed up and they're going to miss out. Okay? We kind of already talked about power, which is the next one. Authority figures. Now this one is interesting because, again, psychologists took a big look at authority. What is it about authority figures that lead people to do things that they normally would not? This is a picture of a shocking switch. It's a very sad study that has been replicated by someone named Stanley Milgram. He's a Stanford psychologist. Has anyone heard of this study before? Okay, they teach it in college now, Psychology 101, because it is the study that people think of when they think about, I wouldn't listen to an authority figure if I truly disagreed with what it is that they were telling me to do. Well, studies show that people normally would. What they did was they separated people into two different rooms. So I'm a psychology student and I need extra credit. I'm going to go to this university lab and I think I'm going to walk away with 2 units extra credit. And I sit there with another college student and I think they're also here for their 2 extra credit units. And I think we're randomly assigned, one person in this room and one person in the other room. I go in there and I'm being told that we are doing a learning study and I need to read out loud some sort of a test and the person on the other side needs to respond. Now I don't really remember what the test items were, but there were simple things like, describe this. What is the difference between this and this? And you just have to give some sort of response. As long as it's right, then we continue with all the rest of the questions. If it's wrong, my job is to administer a shock. There's a shock kind of equipment, and they label it on a scale of 1 to 10. And the more that they get wrong, every time I have to move up 1. So the first shock I deliver is just a 1. It's a very small sound, and the other person in the other room, I can't see them, but I'm hearing them. I hear a ow. Okay, the second time they get something wrong, I have to move to number 2. The experimenter is standing next to me and recording everything. They're wearing a white lab coat, so I think this person is an authority figure. I must comply with the way that they want me to administer the study. So the next time the other person gets something wrong, I press number 2. And I hear this, ow! Hey, stop that! So I think, oh, number 2 hurt a lot more than number 1. And the experimenter says to me, please continue with the questionnaire. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, I'm glad I'm not that person. So I will be here administering the shocks. If that person gets it wrong, I pray they don't get these wrongs. But unfortunately, the questions become increasingly difficult. And so the next time they get one wrong, I'm thinking, I have to press number 3. I press number 3. And the person says, hey, ow, that hurt. When we get out of here, I'm going to hurt you. So I know that really hurt that person. This goes on and on and on. Number 4 and 5, the person becomes extremely distressed. Now I become uncomfortable. I think I'm hurting another human being. I don't want to be a part of this study anymore. So I asked the experimenter, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I really want to leave. I don't even need the extra credit anymore. The experimenter says to me, the experiment must continue. Please continue with the questionnaire with a blank face. Obviously, this is very difficult for the person wearing the white lab coat because you're seeing how distressed the participant's getting. We want to know how much stress is